Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about teenagers and substances abuse. I'm Rita and today it's all about you. Substances abuse are very common during teenager times. These are times where teenagers usually want to try new things, want to risk, want to challenge themselves, and most of the times there are this big curiosity about some toxic substances. The most common ones are alcohol, marijuana, and vaping products in general. Even if sometimes there are no apparently reasons for teenagers to engage in this kind of activities and in this kind of experiences, there are some facts that we need to talk about. So the first fact is about other people. Usually teenagers are surrounded by environments where adults always consume some kind of substances. For instance, usually teenagers have adults around them that smoke or drink alcohol or even have the habit of smoking some other kind of substances like marijuana. So in order to feel social accept and in order to become an adult, teenagers want to try these kind of things because they have role models that surround them that are using this kind of thing. Most of the times this is just a wish for a teenager to become an adult, and most of the times it just wants to do what adults want to do or what adults do, and he just copycat and try this kind of substances. The second thing I want to talk about is this bonding and experience. So sometimes the use of these kind of substances, it's a way that the teenager finds to feel insert in a certain group, to be accepted by their peers, and to make friends in general. So most of the times it's just a teenager express themselves in a way, in a social way, so they just want to make friends, to be a part of a group, and using these kind of substances is just a way to make friends and to be as equal as their peers. The third thing that I want to talk about is the popular media. So smoking, using some toxic substances, vaping, alcohol, these are all things that usually everybody sees a lot in movies, in games, in videos, and it's most of the times expressed as a cool thing. So usually these things are copied by teenagers as something that is very cool, and it's something that is social accepted because they can see in the movies, they can see in the games, they can watch in the television, and even there are lots of effects that they are very negative. In the beginning, this is just something that the teenagers see as a cool thing. The other thing that I want to talk about is self-medication and depression. Sometimes a teenager just cannot cope with all the changes and all the feelings that he has inside, and all the frustrations and all the anger and all the changes that he's feeling, and he just turned to using substances in a way to help numbing all of these feelings. It's escape of reality, it's escape of what he's feeling that he cannot cope with, and at the same time is new feelings, because these substances most of the times make the teenager feel much more confident, make him feel much more happier, and make him feel much more active and energized, this is all are positive things that teenagers are seeking, particularly if they are depressed. We had to talk too about the prescription, the medicine prescription that sometimes parents take, that sometimes are just pain reliefs or tranquilizers or even stimulators, and these substances sometimes can be also used by teenagers without the knowledge of the parents, and this is something that is very risky. Not tolerate to be alone, it's a sign that a teenager is not able to entertain himself, which means that he cannot know, or he doesn't know what to do when he's alone. And this kind of behavior is a little bit dangerous, because this teenager can be a strong candidate to substances abuse, because this is the kind of abuse that comes from boredom, because there's no other interest that he can find for himself when he is alone. Other important kind of behavior is the rebellion one. So teenagers that are already hungry and they are already violent, they usually search for substances that can increase these feelings. This means that there are specific substances that increase this kind of behavior, like methamphetamines, like LSD, and so on. So these are not light drugs, these are dangerous and really strong ones that easily turn a teenager into a much more angry and violent person. So when there are family addiction, it's much more common and much more easy that a teenager that start to try some kind of substances easily get addicted. Of course, this shouldn't be an excuse to use or to just excuse some behavior or some strong addiction in a teenager, but it's important for the healthcare providers know, in order for them to act accordingly with this kind of information. But most of the times these substances give something that the teenager doesn't have or is not very sure about himself. There is self-esteem, self-confidence, and a fake happiness. And these kind of feelings and this kind of instant gratification is what any kind of person that use a substance, toxic substances, is looking for. Another thing that I consider very important is information. And for what I understand, there's lots of misinformation between teenagers. Just because a friend is smoking some kind of things, just because a cousin is trying some kind of substances, and everything is okay, it doesn't mean that they are not dangerous. Of course, all these substances have consequences and have bad influence in teenager health or an adult health, but particularly in a teenager, particularly if it's too young, can really affect lots of different aspects in the brain, in the development, in the physical way. So it's very important that we as a parent just understand all these effects and talk to our teenagers about all these effects of these substances. In general, teenagers' brains are much more susceptible to addictions because the pleasure center is developed faster than the decision maker center. And this explains why teenagers want to risk much more, and they are much more able to try new things, and they are less concerned about the consequences of these experiments. In a psychological way, the consequences of a very high use of substances are, first, can affect the physical and the development of the brain. Can be taken to risk behaviors, for instance, unprotected sex or dangerous drive. Always contribute to developed issues when adults, like heart disease, high blood pressure, or even sleep disorders. Reduce the ability to express and to feel pleasure. Can increase memory, very strong memory problems. Can increase unhealthy habits of the brain function and inhibit the development of perceptual abilities. In a physical way, it can really affect the reproductive system, lower bone density, and liver and lung damage. There are some warning facts and some warning signs for parents that can easily observe in a teenager that starts to use toxic substances. In a physical way, it can be fatigue, cough, red eyes or glazed eyes. In an emotional way, it can be irritability, mood swings, low self-esteem, poor judgment, irresponsible behavior, a lack of interest in things that he used to like, and some signs of light depression. In school, there are decreased interest for school in general, so a negative attitude in school where the grades are going down, and with lots of discipline problems. Of course, all or some of these signs can be related to other things that are not substances uses, but this is something that only parents can evaluate. So it's important for parents to try to talk with their teens, try to gain their trust in order for them to be able to talk to them about all of these things. The other thing that is important is to take routine appointments to the doctor and be able to understand if these behaviors came from toxic substances or not. And the last thing is to make a psychological evaluation of your teenager in order to understand where came from this change of behavior. So you as a parent, it's important that you start to teach your teenager right away to say no and understand why he's saying no, when he can say no, and all the things that he's not missing if he's saying no. Increase the sense of decision maker and responsibility. Accept no from other people and define some goals in their lives. Help your kid to fight for what they want to do or for what they want in general. Help him develop their judgment and their criticism. Encourage your teen every time that he needs to ask for help when he's not able to deal with some kind of situation. Help him every day remember his own qualities and help him make him understand that he can be confident about himself and that he can build his own self-esteem, believing in all of these things. Help him have a healthy lifestyle and educate him for all of these objectively behaves. So understand that everything that you do and say to your teen, it has to make sense, because it's something that he will understand if it makes sense and if it's something that he uses for the rest of his life. And so that's all for today, guys. I hope you like it. I hope you subscribe the channel, give a thumbs up, comment if you want, share with a friend, and I'll see you next time. Bye!